Welcome my friends, this is Maniacal Incorporated, and this is a quick look at the early game in Revival Recolonization, a 4X strategy game from HeroCraft PC. A big thank you to them for giving me a key to check this out. It went into full release in the last couple of days, and it's giving a civilization slash humankind style vibe if all of the ages happened at the exact same time. Here we have a knight with a rifle standing on top of a robot with his chest blown open. We're going to head straight into the game before discussing the setting or the mechanics any further. And what we first do is we pick an emissary. So this is basically an avatar that's going to represent us on the map and that we're going to carry out actions like terraforming with. I'm going to go with Tanya because they all have a drone that gets destroyed after about 6 turns, except for Tanya. They have unlimited operation time on their drone, so we'll get to see a bit more of the map. And we will give them the most important choice of all, a nice patriotic green. So here our emissary, having spent thousands of years in cryogenic freezing, is brought to the surface, and they are greeted by the All Mind, a maniacal artificial intelligence that rules the world. I like the sound of this guy. And the All Mind sets tasks for the player and the AI controlled factions. And the task that they have set is that in 50 turns, whatever faction has researched the most number of sciences will basically win this 50 turn round, and then a new 50 turn round will win. And after a number of those, the winning player will, in the game lore, will go on to the next planet to repeat the process all over again as they attempt to restore humanity after an apocalypse brought about by this devil. So you'll see that we have a region. Here's our avatar. We're in a region. You'll see there's borders. So this is like humankind. Within these regions, we will be able to establish one settlement per region. And we will gain all of the tiles in the region will then contribute to that settlement. So not like in Civilization where you can only work the tiles that are directly within your city. And we have our drone. And we have here what is basically the game's barbarian encampments. We can get something from the ruins if we can first of all get rid of the All Mind faction army. At this stage, they are quite strong, so we're gonna leave them alone for a while. I think we're gonna head towards one of these glowing lights because hopefully we're going to find a clan with which to establish a faction, because at the moment we can't do anything. We can place a capsule, but we can't build a town or do anything else. So we send this guy off this direction, and so far we have found nothing. We have a space station wreck, which is an anomaly, which is going to contribute. So what we might do is head up this way, because that'd be a great region. If we could settle the region that has that anomaly, that would be fantastic. So far we have found nothing. So you can see it's running through the All Mind's turn and then the other AI factions that we're competing against. So after wandering around for a while, our emissary has found the Shield of the North. So this is a human clan, and we can approach them and bring them into our faction. We can effectively incorporate multiple clans into our faction. They have traits. These guys are Luddites, they're tinsmiths, and they're stalkers. And those traits are going to interact positively or negatively with clans in other regions. So there are certain clans that we may or may not be able to incorporate into our faction, depending on which clans we already have there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our emissary and we're going to move them to this tile. We're not going to move them into the actual settlement, or they would end up attacking it. So the Shield of the North clan. And here are the bonuses. Bonuses to hit points, armor points, and damage against All Mind cultists. And then clan penalties, minus 5% science at the end of turn, so that's going to be pretty bad, considering what the current goal the All Mind has set for us is. But it's going to take us a while to go off and try and find a different clan to lead, so in general, it's pretty much for the best to pick the first clan that you come across. This is maybe a part of the game that could do with a bit better balancing, because you really need to move fast. So we're going to take those guys. They're now part of our faction. They've changed colors to join us, and you can see that the border has changed colors to indicate the region that we control, but we aren't finished yet. Now, when a clan joins you, it's going to have a preferred terrain type, and I believe these guys prefer, you can see it there, climate cool. So here we have some cool climates. But if we try to build a town, it's telling us that the region that's cool, none of those regions are actually great to build a town on. The best regions are up here. These are the areas with fertility. I think what we're going to do is we're going to build down here anyway. It mightn't be the best, but it's the best we've got. I think we're actually going to put it right there. So now that we have our city down, we have the ability to build some districts. So we have a Hall of Truth, which is going to generate science, and some of these names are different depending on the clan that you start with. I haven't seen a lot of them, but quite often this is known as just a science district, but here it is known as the Hall of Truth. And we might want to think about getting one of those down, considering that we have to try and do the get a good chunk of research done, so we'll put it there to start with. You can see that we have quite similar resources to what you would expect from something like humankind or civilization, or from a 4X. We have science, we have money, we have production, we have food, and we have one person assigned to food. You can see that we have 1 out of 5 people living here. Will need to research a technology to add extra housing. The one person that we have, we can move them around, put them on engineering if we want to. So we're generating 39 food, we put them there, we've gone up to 49. We also have energy, which we're going to be seeing now in a moment, and we have prosperity, and that's generally used to carry out actions with other clans if we want to vassalize them, if we want them to join our faction, if we want to trade with them, or if we want to assimilate them. Now the first thing we will do is we can click on our research, or we can go to our research up here, our science screen. We have a number of different eras. So here is era 1, here is era 2, 3, and 4, which will give us access to the greatest of all technologies, cryptocurrency. To get cryptocurrency, we're going to need computers. Obviously, that makes sense. Come on. So for computers, we'll need this chain. So we'll need the stock exchange. And obviously, for the stock exchange, you need seaborne trade. So all the ways back to banking, and all the ways back to trade here. Once we have 15 technologies researched from Era 1, we're going to progress on to Era 2. We can still come back and complete technologies here, but we'd want to try and get through the tree fairly quickly. Because at the moment, we are on, we'll say, fairly low weapons, hammers. We want to try and get access to bows, and eventually, as we get up here, to deal with the All Mind, we can get access to Gauss rifles, rail guns, plasma flamethrowers. So here's where all the cool stuff is, up at this end. We're going to start, what are we going to start with? I think because of the goal that we're on, we will go for, we philosophy already researched, so we will go for the Nexus. That's going to generate, or allow us to generate, additional energy. And energy can be used by our emissary to place capsules to terraform the world. So here we have a tile that is cool, and here's another cool tile. And you can see that that has fertility +2. So even though it's outside our city wall, it's still actually contributing to our settlement. It's not just the ones in here. These are the ones that we can build districts on. But these ones These ones don't contribute, so it yields no resources because it's temperate. And we also have some tiles inside our city which are temperate and contributing nothing. So we need to use energy to place capsules. I think it's going to be a cryogenic burst. This one will cool regions down and this one will heat them up. So we'll go with this one. We'll place it there. And we can go for a cold climate or a cool climate, which is what we want. And it's going to affect the tiles that it has highlighted. And we can launch for 250. So on the next turn, so they're all temperate, and then on the next turn, when we end the turn, they're all going to change. We'll place another capsule. We want to try and take in as much of a region as we can. We'll put it there. And the same again. And we're actually in a position to get one more down. So that will cool. There's a couple of climates it could turn temperate, but we're going to have it on cool, and we will launch that. That should be about it. We'll bring the turn to an end. And we can see that those areas are being cooled down. And now, all of a sudden, this one is generating 2 fertility for our settlement. This one is generating 1 engineering and 1 gold. So there's shrubby vegetation, which is subtracting fertility. There is rough terrain, which is subtracting fertility. And then there's fertility, which is adding fertility. So all those numbers put together give us the value at the top, the 1 engineering and the 1 gold. So the starting task is going to be to take our emissary all around this region, convert the entire region to our settlement's preferred terrain type. And to do that, we're going to need to generate more energy because we're not going to have enough. We'll head for these ancient ruins. So these are the buildings that are protected by the All Mines factions. And we have been rewarded with some copper wire, nice, and a control module. And the control modules are used on our edict screen. The edicts that we have at the moment are the cryogenic burst and the infrared heat, and these can also be used as well as to affect the global map and to terraform it. They can also be used in combat, so cools down the target hex and its adjacent hexes by 1 degree of climate. If a unit on an Arctic hex is cooled down, it will become frozen. Now I'm going to increase that, because what it's going to do is it's going to give us a larger region in future to change all at once. And we can also go for acid rain, which is going to again impact the world and also be used in battles. There's low gravity fluxes, ultrasonic booms, irradiation spore clouds. I haven't gotten to check out much of what's down around these lather ends, but artificial volcano, that sounds cool. Mind control. Our scouts have been adventuring out and a couple of things have happened. We've invented Nexus, so we have managed to research a new technology. We found, down here, we have found peculiar old-timers. So here is the starting settlement. Down here we have another faction, peculiar old-timers. And they are fishermen, which gives bonuses to food on hexes with C. They're woodmen and they are mutants. Now, because our starting faction had, or our starting clan had the Stalkers trait, Stalkers hunt mutants. So these guys mightn't get on very well with our starting clan, and I'm not too sure what the full ramifications would be if we tried to assimilate these guys. We can start some diplomacy with them. But I'm going to leave that for a moment, and if we look over here, we found another faction, and our emissary is heading towards them, the Voiceless Merchants clan. They are also mutants. And what we can do is bring our emissary riding close, and that should allow us to enter diplomacy. So here we can see our standing with them. So if we wanted to vassalize them, we would need to get our support up to here, and if we wanted to assimilate them, we would need to get it up to here. These are things that we can do to increase their support for us. We can give them gifts, we can give them clan incentives using prosperity. We can initiate an attack using GMO units, genetically modified. Conclude trade deals with factions. Never capture new towns with mutants. Never cut down wood in the clan region. So we can agree to that. There is a reward of 30 and a penalty of 30. I have seen some people complain that it can be quite difficult to fully understand what you are and aren't supposed to do here. I think I've taken this with a faction that I was trying to vassalize at one stage, and I ended up with the penalty, even though I didn't cut down any trees because I didn't have any workers to do that with. So it can be kind of difficult sometimes to understand fully how to actually achieve what. Never capture new towns with mutants. Is that like towns that have the mutants in them, or use mutants to capture towns? But if we create more units with GMOs and trade with clans, those actions will increase this clan's loyalty. Here in our city, we've managed to build our science quarter. It has an ability which is eradicate heresy, exchange 1 person for 10 reputation. So we can increase our reputation, which is required for performing diplomatic actions, by basically killing one of the people in our settlement. So it's one of the ways of handling overcrowding if that needs to be dealt with. And the Nexus will give us increased energy. We do need that, but we don't have any place that's great for that at the moment. So I think we'll go for an agricultural district, and we will, it's telling us here is best, we will put it there. If I can. There we go. We also have the ability to do some new research. We're up to 5 at the moment. We need infrastructure for housing, so we're going to have to take, we'll just click here and take those 2. And we can see at the moment that we're in 2nd position with 8 points as a result of the technology that we have researched. Considering that our starting clan's preferred terrain type is cool, and we're attempting to max out on science for the all mines criterion, I've given a very appropriate name to our starting city. We'll click on it there to take a quick look at the units. So we have special units and infantry. Under special units we have workers. They can build roads, they can chop down trees, and they can improve resources. Now, resources aren't as plentiful as, we'll say, civilization. There's only a handful of them per region, if any. The shaman is kind of a mini version of the emissary. They can launch edicts, so those are the things that allow them to change the terrain. And they can also build the totems, so like that giant shiny tree that one of the neighbouring clans has that prevents the terrain from changing. And then we have a scout. We have one of those running around the map at the moment. He's down, where's he gone to? There he is. And they have a cape, a compass, and a map. And a scout is basically nothing more than a brute. Except instead of having a club and a shield, they have a compass and a map. So how you can change the equipment and build different types of units is if you have the material for it. Here we have a brute in cape with stone shield, and they have a club assigned. We could give them a compass, or we could give them a quartz spiked club, and then they become a quartz brute in cape with stone shield. And we could, if we had the ability, we could change their cape, and we could change their shield if we had the ability. So armor points 1, cover points 1, and armor points 2, cover points 2. So as you discover new technologies and as you discover new resources and hook them up to your city, build things on them which will allow you to exploit them, you will be able to build more sophisticated types of units with different types of weapons. So we could potentially get to a stage where we might be able to equip this guy with certain types of hammers, and when we get ranged infantry, we'll be able to give them bow and arrows, or we'll be able to give them those Gauss rifles. Is he trying to fence with a club? Now, we don't actually have the ability to equip somebody with a quartz club and a stone shield, so we will get somebody with a normal club and the stone shield. We'll get them being built, and we will get another one. So we don't have the resources. We'll get this guy. And we can now, if we so wish, spend 600 gold to actually speed up that process. Instead, over here with the Voiceless Merchants clan, I'm actually going to spend some of our prosperity to gain some favor with them, or some loyalty. So we can, for 7, for a grand total of 7. And we're producing 5 per turn. So we can see that we have incompatible traits. That's the fact that they are mutants, and there are stalkers among our faction. They don't like stalkers. Who does? Now here's some rather bad news. The clan of peculiar old-timers have attacked our town. We can pay them off with 500 gold or fight them. I'm going to pay them off because we don't actually have any troops in that area to defend against them at the moment. So here in Too Cool for School, which just came under attack in the last few moments from a group of peculiar old-timers who we had to pay off to get them to go away, because we've managed to build 2 districts side by side, they have attempted to expand into the district between them. Now, because it's a mountain, they haven't been able to, and so we have ended up expanding to both of these tiles on the left and right. So we're going to basically expand around the mountain. I have a feeling if I was to put something here, it would try and expand in this direction, and failing to do that, it would instead take this tile here, or maybe even this one, or maybe even both of them. And also because of that attack from the peculiar old-timers, I got a bit confused and managed to miss a button over here, so I didn't get to implement an empire plan. This seems to be something that just happens every set number of turns, and you basically get to spend the reputation resource to either add plus 10 money, plus 10 food, plus 10 production, or plus 10 science, which is what I would have gone for. And then as you go through the epochs, you get more and more powerful versions of those. Far to our south or to our north, depending on what way you want to look at the map, we've met another AI player. So here is Faction Lotos, and they're unloyal to us. I believe we can attack them, but at the moment we're going to leave them alone. But they will try and influence the regions around them, and the regions are quite small, or there aren't a huge amount of them. I have seen people sometimes complaining about the way the very first time I played, I ended up wedged between, I think, 3 factions. I was surrounded by them, and the goal that the All-Mind had set for us was to vassalize other clans, and there was no way of actually expanding out and taking anywhere. So sometimes the starting conditions can be quite cruel. And I was planning on getting together an army, and I might do it yet, and attacking one of the All-Mind factions. Now, I will just address this. First of all, you can see that there is a number, or not necessarily a number. The number above their head is how many units there is, but there's a pie chart. A pie chart of intolerance. Accumulates when humans commit various actions in the region, such as destroying automatons, growing totem trees, launching edicts, worker actions. Oh, they're not socialists. They don't like the trade union movement. And once it reaches its limit, so it's basically shared by all of these guys in a single region, and once it reaches its limit, the All-Mind drops a very powerful arsehole into the region, and he causes devilment. That's basically it. So I might yet put together an army, a couple of troops, and take on one of them. However, here are the peculiar old-timers. They basically raided our city. They ransomed us for 500 quid, so I am going to teach them a lesson. Win probability it's going to be a crushing defeat. Because we're fighting in our own starting region, we're actually also going to get reinforcements. So these are the troops that are guarding our capital. And we'll begin the battle. And we're going to see that the battles are similar to what you would expect or what you would see in humankind. So the region that we started in is changed ever so slightly. It's modified ever so slightly. All of the actual cities and things like this disappear. Our city, I think, is roughly around there, and we have tiles out here, but all that has disappeared. The region that we're in becomes the battleground, just like on humankind. We have lots and lots of oil reservoirs around the place, which can be blown up. The space station wreck has remained behind, and there are a couple of defensive positions, so these walls can be used as defense positions. So what we will do is we will try and get our clubmen as far forward as we can. We don't want their archers hitting the barrels and blowing up our troops, so we won't put them around them. So you can just kind of free move people to start with. And we'll bring our emissary up there, and we will begin the battle. So they have archers, so I imagine they're not going to offer us battle. We'll have to try and move forward. Now we don't have any trees in this region, but if units stand in trees, so we'll bring these guys forward first of all, and we should be in a position to shoot. Now if these guys were in trees, we wouldn't be able to shoot them. They would be invisible. But if any of our melee units were standing beside them, they would then become visible again. Now I'm not too sure where exactly. We have a certain amount of... we can see where we can move to. And then we have our ability to shoot. Now I'm not too sure what the actual... where the what the range is and stuff like that. For some reason our emissary didn't get a chance to move. I have seen that sometimes is quite awkwardly units just being skipped for no apparent reason. So the combat is potentially a small bit finicky. And it can also be difficult if you try to select troops other than the one that has been selected. And our reinforcements have made it onto the map. I want to bring this guy forward. So here is our emissary. We mightn't be able to do this. And by this, I have no idea what this is. Here are tactical edicts. So we have our infrared, we have cryogenic burst, but here are some ones that I have picked up. Creates a low gravity flux in the target hex and its adjacent hexes, which removes terrain penalties for traveling units and improves their attack range. And ultrasonic boom disorientates units in the affected hexes, destroys rocks and glaciers in the target hex and its adjacent hexes. Smoothens rough terrain, so it costs 25 energy. We'll hit this guy. So we have a bit of a piercing noise. And we have one of our melee units. Let's see if we can send them in. Let's see what kind of damage they do now. So knocked 2 hit points off of them. And we have 1 down. And we might be... I don't think we'll be able to. We don't have the range. Again, like I said, I'm not entirely sure what the range on these guys is like. Probably 5. So we're just outside of that. We will bring the turn to an end. And bring this guy down. Sometimes with a lot more units, and you also have to we won't be able to, if we attack with this guy, we won't be able to move again with him. But I selected him, I right-click to attack this guy, and he just moved towards him. So now I have to right-click again to actually have him initiate the attack. With larger amounts of troops, so this was an exceptionally small battle, but with larger amounts of troops, the battles can get a bit lengthy. They can take a bit of time, and they can very quickly turn. There are a lot of different enemies, very interesting types of enemies. When fighting the old mind, as well as just randomly skipping turns, I have seen that happen once in a while. Units will just randomly kind of skip turns, but their units also have the ability to actually paralyze units. And your units won't move, they can't attack, they can't do anything. There are also zombies, which roam the areas, attacking everything in sight. And if they kill one of your units, that unit will raise from the dead on the side of the zombies. They're very easy to kill, but they do a tremendous amount of damage when they actually attack you in battle. And no surprises there, we now have fairly low reputation with the Peculiar Old-Timers clan. Down -10 because we attacked the clan's unit. +2 because the clan received tribute from a town belonging to our faction. You started this. Now we've discovered a few more clans in this region. We have Servants of the Blessed Fang. They are people of the Arctic, so they would be incompatible with our faction. And they are Philosophers and Thunderers. They're also thieves, so they would get on well with our people. But because I think we're tinsmiths and they're Thunderers, they know many secrets of electric current. And they're Philosophers, they also wouldn't get on well with us. And next to them are the Children of the Silent Hills, which would actually be a pretty good faction to try and incorporate. And you can see that we actually already have enough similarity that we would be able to vassalize them. So if we were to send, here is our scout, and if we were to bring them over, maybe on the next turn, we might be able to vassalize them and make them part of our, well, they wouldn't join our faction. They would turn the same color as us, and then eventually we might be able to get them up to assimilate them. But they're woodsmen, they're merchants. And we also have a couple of really interesting anomalies around the place. Here's one that you can teleport to another anomaly. So if we can discover another one of those, we could teleport to it. Here's one that can turn the region into acid. I can spray acid around the area. Here is a, I don't know if we can actually see it, there is lead. So it is a scientific resource, and it can be used or heavy shield infantry, bronze shield infantry, to make lead arrowheads and bronze arrowheads. There is quartz which can be used for a number of different weapons. And we have another interesting anomaly over here. Here's the Pale Preachers. Luddites, which is the same as us. Mutants, we're stalkers. And murderers. They don't get on well with stalkers, but they get on well with murderers. And here's the Hollow Theatre, an old world theatre. One can sometimes view the recordings of ancient robot dancers here. The holograms are visible from many kilometers away, and that will give increased prosperity and reputation. I know that the Kremlin is the ruins of the Kremlin. I was hoping that they'd pop up somewhere, or even the Statue of Liberty. They are also anomalies that can appear on the map. So we've sent our scout down to meet with the Children of the Silent Hills clan. And for 88 prosperity, we can vassalize them. So a faction may vassalize a clan when it meets the loyalty requirements and has enough prosperity to compensate for the lack of loyalty. On vassalization, a number of diplomatic interactions and trade options become available to the faction. So we will vassalize. And now we can see that the Children of the Silent Hills, they have turned green, and we can see a dashed line. So it's not a solid line, a dashed green line around this area, indicating that they are vassals of our faction, but they haven't been assimilated into our faction. And you can see actually these are guys that would be fairly easy to keep happy. Destroy automatons. So if we attack the all-mind armies, this would actually increase their loyalty. They will also be happy trade with factions only. I presume we wouldn't be able to trade with the other AI players. Destroy automatons. So if we were to destroy these guys, we'd get a big loyalty boost. And there's a couple of other things that they want. We can trade with them for lead. And we can also see they're standing with other player factions. So their relations with Lothos are at 49, and with us it's 15. And then we can also see that they have politics. So there's a couple of different options. I think maybe, I won't say that the UI is fairly solid, but there is a lot of information in this game. Quite often it's not entirely clear. So I think there's maybe a small bit of polishing to be done in that area. So at times it's kind of difficult to understand fully what is going on. Trade is easy enough. The information screen here, especially in relation to where do we stand in relation to Lothos, is Lothos ahead of us, even though we've actually managed to vassalize these guys. I'm not entirely sure if they can actually take vassals away from us. And these options are a bit strange at the moment. Never bring gifts to vassals. So if we accept this, when do we actually get the 30 reward? Do we get it if we don't bring gifts for a certain amount of time? Never bring gifts to vassals. You don't have to tell me twice. So there we go, that has been a somewhat quick look at Revival, Recolonization, the very early stages of the game. There's a lot here that I like, there's a lot here that I think is going to improve with a bit of work and a bit of polish. The battles, like I said, can be a bit lengthy at times. I do like the overall mechanic of having your emissary go out and try and transform and terraform the world to improve it, and of course you can effectively engage in battles with other emissaries as you go into their region and transform it to something that is inhospitable for their factions. There's a lot of terminology and a lot of moving parts which I think might need to be cleared up a small bit. I really like the city building aspect, but it is quite limited in the sense that you only get to build one settlement per region. And if you end up in a bad start, if you end up wedged between a few AI players, as I will call them rather awkwardly, you might end up not being able to expand, being rushed very early on. You do need to move quite fast in the early game. I've seen a lot of people complain about the difficulty level and comment on the difficulty level. I haven't really progressed much beyond Era 2 so far. I tend to get kind of, I won't say wiped out, but a couple of engagements. One engagement with these robots goes badly and you end up losing a ton of troops. You need to get quite a lot of resources together in the early stage if you want to be able to survive. So there's definitely a bit of balancing that needs to be done in the game's difficulty. There's definitely a bit of polish that needs to be done to certain aspects of the AI. I really like the map. I really like the anomalies. I really like the diversity in the world. I know some people have kind of commented on not entirely liking the transition from one hex to another, but it hasn't kind of bothered me too much. And I really like this whole... This is the kind of stuff that you laugh about in Civilization, where you have robots going up against guys with bow and arrows, and I'd love to be able to get far enough into the game to see these guys change from using bow and arrows to Gauss rifles and flamethrowers. And I haven't gotten to experiment with it fully, but I do like the idea of using these edicts to shape the world around you, to improve the abilities of your troops and to negate the abilities of the enemy troops. Basically, your units can do very little. They seem to be fairly limited. They can move, they can attack. That seems to be it in its entirety. However, you can use your emissary to actually impact and change the types of things that they can do. It would be handy if the emissary could actually do something that deals damage, because we are in a position now where we're probably going to lose a unit due to the fact that the emissary can't do anything unless we have the range. We do, but they still haven't been able to kill him. And with one final shot over the mountain, we will be able to take out the last of the robots, the All Mind faction. Guarding this little unit has been wiped out, and we have secured 300 energy. We have secured mutagen, diamonds, and electronics. Revival Recolonization, it's a really interesting game, it's a really interesting idea. There's a lot of innovation on the 4X strategy concept, on the core mechanics. They haven't strayed too far away. We have our old reliables, we build our city, we have our districts, we have the same recognizable resources. It does take a small bit of time to get into. I do think it needs a bit more work, a bit more balance in the early stage, but it's definitely one that I would keep an eye on. I'd consider wishlisting it and looking out for it on sale, or maybe seeing if there are some new patches and some new updates, and it's going to be interesting to see where this one goes in future. So there you go, that has been a quick look at Revival Recolonization. What do you think? Is this something that you'd be interested in? Do you think it is fit to sit or to stand in the same company as Civilization or Humankind, which I know has kind of fallen by the wayside a small bit? It wasn't as much of a success as was hoped. It hasn't been the Civ killer that everyone predicted it to be. Have you played this? What have your experiences been? Have you managed to win a game? Have you managed to complete a game? I haven't, and I think it's going to be a while before I do manage to do that. Thank you very much for joining me on this episode, and I hope that you will join me again in the future, a future with lasers and bow and arrows.